Hey, Stoney here with another game of Mechabellum. In this game, I am up against ICD. I think it's 1900 plus MMR. He's playing as a fortified specialist, and I'll be playing as a giant specialist. Right off the bat, I got the classic sledgehammer crawler, so I decided to just be very conservative, have the sledgehammers in front of the towers, because my opponent does have crawler phoenixes, so sometimes they like to put them all the way on the edge, coming in from the edge, so I didn't want that, and I want my sledgehammers to protect the tower. All right, so starting at round one, my opponent is going heavy on one side, and that's not going to be great news for me, but that's okay. Something like this is fairly easy to defend. My bigger problem here is that I am currently wasting some resources on the other side. That's not really doing much. All right, very unfortunate tower capture, and it's going to get my marksman, which means it's going to get the rest of this round. All right, looking at round two, we got some interesting unit cards. Nano Repair Kit is picked by both sides. I think at this early stage, we're not really going to use the item. Rather, we're just saving it for a giant that's going to come in the next two rounds. At the bottom, I continue to add chaff and just building the boards without committing something like a giant. Usually when you're playing a game like this, the player that puts down a giant first is at a slight disadvantage because it gives your opponent a one-turn advantage to respond to it. So, for example, if you put in down things like a fortress, then your opponent puts down a melting point. So that is a bit of a problem. One way to kind of counteract that is that if your fortress provides, it creates more than just one problem. Usually when you put down a fortress, right, it just is a fortress problem. It's tanky, it does quite a bit of damage to single units. But if it does allow certain other units, for example, if you have Wasp, that's kind of was getting destroyed a lot by fans or mustangs, but now with the fortress, the fans and mustangs are focusing on the fortress, and your wasp get to come in and do damage. Those are the situations where you have a bit more tempo. But generally speaking, I think whoever puts down a giant or start to commit into a unicom is at a slight disadvantage. All right, turn two ends very similarly to turn one with a tower capture and also the snipe on the marksman. I think the correct response in turn three will be just add another marksman so that I don't have to deal with this Phoenix problem at the very end. All right, a few sets of units. Fire Badger was offered, and Fire Badger being the best unit in the entire game is, of course, gets picked. RHINO was also offered, and I was a little worried about the RHINO push. Now, knowing that we're going to go into giants eventually, I figure, you know what? If there's already a RHINO and my opponent is playing aggro, there's like a very high chance that he is going to pick the RHINO and mobile beacon to my tower. So how do I defend against that? Well, let's get the Fire Badgers and let's take Ignite. Something that not a lot of players use, but it is so powerful against high HP units like the RHINO. So let's get that. So that makes the Fire Badger both a anti-chaff unit, but also an anti-giant unit. So they're kind of covering the two extremes of the spectrum. And of course, my opponent picked the RHINO, and of course the RHINO is going to my weaker tower. Now let's see if it works out for him. One thing to be worried about is these high-level phoenixes. They're going to pick up my Fire Badgers fairly quickly if I don't have enough chaff support. All right, let's take a look at this side.
Fire Badger, our beacon bright, burning through the darkest night with flames that dance.
That's just how powerful Ignite is. Level 1 Fire Badgers with some cheap units and cheap chaff, able to take down a level 3 RHINO with Nano. All right, let's get some real answer to these Phoenixes now that I've dealt with the ground. Deployment spec is great. Sticky Oil is not bad either against the aggro player, but I think for now I just needed more marksmen to survive against those Phoenixes. So deployment spec was the pick for me. For my opponent, Photon is not bad. Photon actually gives, and he did, oh no, he picked oil. I was going to say Photon does nullifies the ignite effect. So if you put Photon on this Rhino, it's going to go pretty far. Oil is added to the ground. I think the plan was that he wants to run his crawlers in, and hopefully that my fire badgers will ignite the ground. But we'll see. Jump drive got picked on the Phoenixes, and now they're moving all the way to the other side. I'm surprised the Rhino is not going for that tower. I think he was expecting a stronger response in the form of fire badgers, and he will be right. But what he didn't expect was the anti-air marksman. All right, fire badger. Oh, that did ignite the ground because the Rhino, which is terrible, but fire badgers themselves are pretty tanky, and I don't really need chaff to, to go where I'm going. Unfortunately, the tower was brought down, and as a result of that, my opponent is going to win this round. So very strong aggro play coming from the opponent so far. He's able to take every single round, even though I've been defending with the correct tech. So it's just a very powerful, very high pressure aggro play. Smoke bomb gets picked. I think the smoke bomb was mostly just for the Scorpion. I didn't want him to deal any damage to my fire badgers that quickly. The Rhino is still on the board, and it's very difficult to predict because it is in the middle, and he has jump drive on his Phoenixes. So essentially, he can alternate left, right, and kind of keep me in the loop. So it's a very clever way to force your opponent to lose resources. Fortunately for me, I think I am now officially going into Fire Badger carry, getting range and ignite. So they're excellent against chaff. They're excellent against large units. I think if they lock onto a Scorpion, if they can dodge the first shot, is able to bring down the Scorpion as well before it gets the second shot. So far, I mean, and also it's such a weird build, right? When was the last time you've seen carry Fire Badgers? I mean, I haven't seen it. I've seen Fire Badgers used effectively as chaff clear, but never as a carry unit. So let's see if my opponent figures this out. One very easy way to kind of deal with this is just to get Stormcallers. I think Stormcallers are great. Get Electromag on Stormcallers. Most of my units are static. They don't move too much. And you can shell me from the safety of all of your aggro units. All right, in this round, I did get to win on the right-hand side, and I'm going to take down the tower. Anti-air marksman is able to quickly bring down those Phoenixes. So this is my first round win in the entire game, starting at round 5. But it's not over yet. We have quite a few units that's in play here. I picked the Sandworm. I think the Sandworm works well with the Fire Badgers because 1 is extra tanky, and 2, it serves as a great distraction, pulling all the units to 1 point. And Fire Badger has a pretty respectable splash damage. So it's going to increase the effectiveness of the Fire Badger, both in terms of chaff clear and also giant killing. And also Sandworm gives me an excuse to use the Nano, which I didn't want to waste on a Fire Badger. All right, putting down even more chaff in the form of late arriving fangs. I noticed that if I get to keep my Fire Badger in the game long enough, they can kill everything. So I'm just going to keep piling on the distraction and the garbage so my Fire Badgers can burn everything else. The Phoenixes are no longer a serious threat because of the anti-air marksman. Range gets picked on the Scorpions, so they're now a bit more effective. Interesting fact, level 1 Scorpion does one-shot level 1 Fire Badgers, but does not one-shot level 2 Fire Badgers. If you're tanks, then your level 1 Scorpion does one-shot level 2 tanks. We got another aggro mobile beacon coming in the form of Sandworm, but guess what? Fire Badgers is also great against Sandworm. Anything that gets in your face that has high HP is a thing that the Fire Badger can efficiently clear. All right, we got Sandworm popping out, level 2 Sandworm, looking extremely scary, very menacing. But just look at this, we got one Fire Badger on the Sandworm, and it's already taking down half of his health. And this is a level 2 Sandworm with almost 120,000 HP. All right, Sandworm is going to pop again, gets ignited, gets taken down. A very convincing round on my side. And I bet my opponent is sweating at this point. It's like, what the heck is going on? How the heck do I go against these Fire Badgers? Barrier is a good option. Fire Badgers, even though they've got the Ignite, they have no damage. Which means whatever you have on the barrier, these Fire Badgers will take forever to kill. Alright, Fire Badgers are being leveled, which means they are now surviving Scorpion shots, which is huge because it allows them to lock onto the Scorpions. And to further mitigate damage from the Scorpions, I took shield on the fence and I'm putting extra fence in the back. So really forcing the Scorpion to deal with a lot of chaff around him. The Sandworm seemed to work well on this side. It was drawing a lot of aggro. So I decided to put even more Sandworm here. Wasps were added last game, but I think that was a mistake. I think the main reason they were added is to distract my marksman. But honestly, I have so many fans, and the Wasps being so forward as they are, they're just going to run into my fans and get shut down right away. I would love to see like backline Wasp, like down here after my fans were all destroyed. I did level this fan down here, specifically to answer these forward Wasps. All right, let's look at all the big units. Level 4 RHINO with Whirlwind coming in, does some damage. Yeah. Goes down. Level 2 Sandworm coming in, does some damage. Yeah, there we go. Scorpion locking on to my Fire Badgers. No problem. Fire Badger comes in, Fire Badger gets Ignite. Yep, goes down. Oof. All right. Incendiary Bomb, very good. Mass-produced Fortress, if you have Punch, also very good against Fire Badgers. Mobilized Battleship, that's probably the nail in the coffin here. If I can get to a tower here, then the rest of my units would just win the game. The Fire Badgers at this point, I'm just looking at the board here, right? He's got Ground Chaff and he's got Ground Giants, both of which are great for my Fire Badgers. All I needed to do is to hold up his army long enough so that my Fire Badgers can lock onto his units, and that will be game. So I've decided to add more Worms. I added Armor Enhancement, even more HP for him to deal with. At the time, he didn't have Melting Point, so I figured that would be pretty great. But now with Melting Point, I think it'll still be okay, because if I can get this tower, my units are going to live for a very long time. Melting Points do have suck. I think they are effective against the Sandworms, but not so effective against the Fire Badgers. All right, let's watch this battle unfold.
Fire Badger, our beacon bright, burning through the darkest night, with flames that dance and a will of steel. She fights for us, her love is real.
And that's game. So hopefully you enjoy this game. You really showcases the power of a Fire Badger, not just as a chaff clearer, but also as a giant killer. And hopefully you can incorporate this strategy in your games. And if you like this game, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. I am very active on the Discord as well. You can find the link in the description. And if you have a game that you want me to cast or you just couldn't figure out, post in the Discord, tag my name, Stoney, Mechabellum, and I will be able to jump on it. All right, until then, I will see you on the next one.
Prepare your tactics. Mechabellum's calling. Deploy your fortress. The battlefield's alive with swarms.